If you've ever stood in front of a lab bench wondering whether that next balance will end up gathering dust or actually saving you time, you're not alone. The fear of spending a good chunk of money on a piece of equipment that doesn't fit your workflow is real, especially when you're juggling tight budgets, tight deadlines, and the need for reliable data. You want something that will just work, not a gadget that needs a PhD to calibrate every morning. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. In this review, I'm going to walk through why the Sartorius Entris II Basic might be the answer for some labs, and why it could be a miss for others. First off, let's talk about the kind of day-to-day you're likely to have with an analytical balance in a busy environment. You're measuring powders for a formulation, checking the weight of a catalyst batch, or maybe you're in a teaching lab where students need a reliable instrument that won't freak out at the slightest breeze. What you need is consistency, a quick way to get back to work after each weigh, and a way to keep the data where you need it without a lot of extra steps. That's where the Entris II's ISOCAL system and LED touch interface start to matter. The internal calibration ISOCAL is built right into the balance, which means you can trigger a calibration cycle with a single touch. In practice, this cuts down the routine that many of us use to perform with external weights. Instead of pulling out a set of calibration standards, waiting for the balance to settle, and then documenting the results, you just press a button and the system does the math for you. For a lab that runs dozens of weighings a day, that translates into minutes saved each shift, minutes that add up to hours over a month. If you're the kind of user who hates manual calibration logs, you'll appreciate that. The LED touchscreen is another practical feature. It's not just a glossy interface, the screen responds to a light tap, which feels more intuitive than hunting for a knob in a glove-filled environment. The hybrid screen layout gives you a clear readout of the weight, the unit, and the status of the balance at a glance. In my experience watching a couple of research groups that have this model, the screen stays readable even when they're wearing lab coats and goggles, and the backlight makes it easy to see in dimmer bench lighting. That visual clarity can reduce the chance of misreading a value, especially when you're dealing with 0.1 mg increments. Data handling is another spot where the Entris II shows its worth. The optional data cable lets you pipe measurements straight into a PC without needing extra software. In a quality control setting, that means you can log each measurement directly into a spreadsheet or a LAMS system, keeping a digital trail that satisfies audit requirements. The fact that no additional software is required reduces the IT overhead. You just plug in the USB-Type cable and the balance appears as a standard device. For labs that already have a data acquisition workflow, this can be a smooth integration. Now, let's be clear about who should really consider this balance. If you're running a medium-sized analytical chemistry lab, a pharmaceutical formulation unit, or a teaching lab where students need a dependable instrument that can handle routine calibrations without a lot of supervision, the Entris II Basic ticks the boxes. Its 60G capacity with 0.1 mg readability is enough for most sample sizes you'll encounter in those settings, and the chemical-resistant weighing chamber means you don't have to worry about corrosive powders damaging the interior. That durability translates into lower long-term maintenance costs, which is a hidden value not obvious from the headline specs. On the flip side, if you're working in a high-throughput environment where you need to weigh up to several kilograms per sample, or you need ultra-high precision below 0.01 mg for trace analysis, the Entris II Basic may feel cramped. The 60G limit caps the size of the samples, and while 0.1 mg readability is solid for many applications, it isn't enough for the most demanding microanalysis work. Also, the optional data cable is an extra purchase. It's not bundled, so if you need that connectivity right out of the box, you'll have to budget a little extra. There are a couple of practical weaknesses worth mentioning. The balance's internal calibration, while convenient, still requires a stable environment. If your lab has frequent temperature swings or drafts, you'll notice the balance taking a bit longer to settle after a calibration cycle. That's not a design flaw, just a reminder that you need to place the unit on a vibration-isolated bench, which many labs already do. Another point is that the screen, while easy to read, is a touch surface that can pick up fingerprints and residue from powders. A quick wipe with a lint-free cloth solves it, but it's an extra step you'll have to remember if you're switching between oily and dry samples. One subtle trade-off is the balances.